So I'm going to give the floor to Andre, who is an artist, a sculptor, a writer, and a lot more. So Andre, the floor is yours.
Thank you, everybody. Hello, everybody. I'm happy to meet you all today. It's my first evening with you. For you to know, I'm Spanish from Barcelona, a Catalan citizen. I'm an artist, as Vijay said. Thank you, Vijay, for the introduction. And beyond being an artist, I've been also a lecturer at university off and on, but let's say more off than on. I'm a member of the German Federation of Scientists, to which I was co-opted in 2007, which does not imply that I'm a scientist. I'm an artist who writes science, which is not the same. And I was co-opted because of merits. And I have been a silent diplomat negotiating wars since 2003. I stopped some conflicts which people know about, but don't know how they stopped. So if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them after this evening, not now. And for you to know, I'm very happy to be introduced here and to let you know that Cordula Reimann, Dr. Cordula Reimann, who is a former citizen of Wuppertal, also the city which I'm living in right now in Germany. We live here in Germany since 2012 for political reasons. And Dr. Cordula Reimann lives now in Switzerland. She's a Swiss citizen, so she will be chairing the GAMIP chapter in Switzerland. I do the German one, and she's my co-chair in Germany, and I'm her co-chair in Switzerland. And what we intend is to bring in all our knowledge, all our expertise in peace building, also in, let's say, calming down, soothing down conflicts, and seeing that they get to a level where people can at least talk to each other. And I'm particularly interested in getting peace to be the standard, which implies that peace and peace work become the very normal, which also implies that they are paid and rewarded by society in a very normal way. So for you to know, I've been working on this since the early 90s. So it's now more than 30 years ago that I started working on these issues. I've been writing starting at the age of 14. And what I wrote is also, even though I didn't publish anything, so the only thing that existed were my writings, and I did some email exchange with scientists at the University of Barcelona. That's all. And I would assist to 2, 3, sometimes 4 congresses of social sciences in Spain every year, and that was all. And then suddenly we had the military knocking on our door and saying, Andres, we need to talk to you. And this is when everything started. So for you to know also, I had never a political intention. I was an artist, and I was just writing a systems theory of violence, which explains how violence as a system runs. And this allows then replacing violence with other strategies. And I was doing this based on all the things which I had learned and all the things which we had been discussing for years in the arts, and also my very empirical observation of victims of violence, which I had been working with since the age of 21. Then this all leads to, let's say, a need of adjusting processes, because when people do research, they are very often very far ahead in what they do from others, and what they do not do is because they do research, and there is little communication, as I had it, for example, just with the university in Barcelona and nothing else. What happened is that at some point the military knocked on the door and said, you need to talk to more people. And what happened then is that I was invited, for example, to assist the NATO General Assemblies between 2010 and I managed several conferences within NATO in which I was then the only silent diplomat in the room, in terms of silent diplomacy and in terms of independency, which means that I was not a member of any association. So also for you to know, I started a process of silent diplomacy with Ukraine, and I have to keep silent about many of my doings until they can be unveiled. And I will also not be very loud about my GAMIP membership in the beginning. I will have to wait and see when it is the right moment to bring this in. But let's say that the most important thing that I wish to contribute to in GAMIP is really thinking about the structures of an economy of peace, because it starts with articulating principles of action, which are, for example, based not on the terms of rights, of human rights, because people do not have rights by birth, even though they get credited these rights, as we see. If I was on a, let's say, lawyer and judges and so a world criminology conference, I would have the lawyers and the judges in front of me telling me that the way human rights are implemented on the planet is so frustrating that these lawyers and judges were thinking of lowering the standard for the world to make it easier for the bad countries to access the level of the better countries, yeah, which is a completely crazy thought. But this is just to tell you how I experienced these issues in terms of, laws and in how these laws are implemented and how people have access to rights. So I prefer the term of responsibility, and I've been acting all my life according to these principles of responsibility. So here I am, even though I didn't want to, and here I am doing politics, even though I didn't want to. Yeah, just accepting the situation as it is. I would like to let you know that we had a NATO conference on the 4th of June of 2014. I will not unveil, let's say, who said what, but I could, because I have a handwritten protocol about this session, which lasted more than 8 hours. And I have recorded everything that was said in the room. And I wish you to know that at this point of the conflict, the Maidan had already happened, isn't it? On the 4th of June, the Maidan was over, right?
Yeah.
And I hope that everybody knows, or at least assumes, who did the Maidan, isn't it? I mean, you know that some foreign agencies were at work in Ukraine, right? So, according to what I listened to in the room, United States declared war on Russia in that very same session. And I recorded the very precise words, yeah, the people used. It was not like we will go to war with Russia openly, but it was something like we will track them down, we will chase them down, we will work against them where we can. Russia will have to be the bad guys and they will have to use everything they have, things like that were told very, very officially, very, very loud. Yeah. Obviously, there was a problem in Crimea. But I think that problem, if we look at what happened in Yugoslavia, or if we look at what is happening right now in Turkey with Kurdistan, yeah, there is similar issues, isn't it? And I think that the issue was solved quite well in Crimea. Yeah. So with this regard, I wish, I wish I could talk more, but I'm a silent diplomat, so I have to be careful. Yeah. But for you to know, it's definitely not the Russians who started this war on the 24th of February. And I was warned by people within NATO months ahead before it started. I would like to comment again, on the situation we have, because you must understand that every time the military-industrial complex works at any conflict, which they prepare way ahead of time. They have a planning, like all the big companies have. I assisted, for example, in year 2012 to a meeting of the largest companies of Earth in Brussels. And they got me in because I was in parallel in NATO sessions. So they wanted to have my perspective. And these big companies were companies like Panasonic, Sony, Bayer, all of them together, working together, teaming up. And you know what they were doing? The plans for the next 25 years of business.
Oh, true.
Well, believe me, the weapons industries do exactly this. Yeah. And this is why I say that peace must be an economic peace, because if we want this to stop, we have to buy them in. As far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, slavery ended because some politicians bought parliament members in United Kingdom, in Britain, and bought their votes. And this is how slavery in England ended. Yeah, that's what I know. So we will have to really think about it. And this is where I hope that, on the long run, we will not achieve this on the short term, but on the long run, we have to get more and more business people involved. And this is very important. In the last weeks, I had the good luck that due to the conflict in Ukraine, some German business people started writing a letter. And this letter is calling other business people to bring money in. Why? Because the military-industrial complex is breaking up the entire market to take as much out of the market as they can, to make sure they fill their own pockets, and destroying the market of all the others. And this is what business people see. The first businessman approaching me was a businessman doing tourism. He could not send any tourists anymore to Russia and to Ukraine, end of story. So it's bad for his business. So I said, Andres, and he knew me now for many years. So I said, I must start doing something. Yeah? And this is in fact what we have to make people understand. We have to be very practical on this issue. We cannot, we have to do the idealistic, the spiritual work, but we also have to be very practical. And at the very end of the day, weapons manufacturers and weapon traders are people who have to eat and they need a roof. So, if we build a peace economy that is strong enough to include them, it will be less of a problem. But we really have to take this into account. I just would like to add something to Evelyn, which is very simply that, one of the things which I do, for example, when I'm in sessions mediating peace, is I start from the point of view of the weakest in the situation. Let's say that the situation of the weakest in the negotiation is always the lowest standard to which we can go and where it's easiest to make the agreements. Yeah? So it's, for example, this is one issue. And then the other thing which I would like to just put a word in for us to have it in mind is, because Cordula is not in the room, otherwise she would do it, which is to talk about collective trauma and to know that the collective trauma syndrome is a syndrome that, for example, channels rational production. Its rational output is always limited by the emotional bias. And this is something that if trauma is in the room, it also distorts the conversation, and we have to cope with that distortion and with the background of it. Okay, so far. Just for you to know, in 2019, we had an online conference. We were just 15 people around the globe, yeah, including Jamie Shee, who asked me into the conference. Jamie Shee is a British citizen, isn't he? And he's a Secretary General of NATO, isn't he? And Jamie Shee is the one who led then a discussion with us about fake news. And you know, the main sentence in all of the discussion was told by Jamie Shee, and it was a sentence in which he told that the most important thing was that media would produce news in a way that would support the discourses and the narratives of the elites. He said this very clearly. Yeah. So everything else is fake news. If you try to talk for peace in Germany, you're going to be hanged at the next tree. I certainly would say, you know, that Olaf Scholz is reticent, he's holding back, then he makes some desperate move, like jumping in and putting 100 billion euro into the pockets of armament industries, you know. You know that when Olaf Scholz said that he would put 100 billion euro into the Bundeswehr, next morning at 8 o'clock, the representatives of the armament industry, the representatives of the companies which are in Düsseldorf, you know, just 30 kilometers away, which is Rheinmetall, were in the office of the Green Minister of Foreign Affairs, Annalena Baerbock, and saying, hello, here we are, what can we offer? Yeah, I mean, this is the way it runs. Yeah, politics and the armament industries are very much tied. So to be honest, with Olaf Scholz, I have, you know, a very difficult relationship. I think that Netherlands has a special role because I'm not sure, I think that they are not signatories, but how is it called? There is a second option they can have. I think Holland, so Netherlands has it, and I'm not sure if Germany has it too, which is that they are muted or silent assistants, which means that when the meeting is there, they are in the room, but, you know, and they could say something, you know, maybe eventually, but so these countries need a little push. And the little push obviously has to come from the bottom. Yeah, it's a bottom-up issue, okay? And poor Olaf Scholz, what is he going to say, you know, with so many Germans eating bratwurst and drinking beer? They're not caring right now, right? They have other problems. Yeah? They have, for example, Ukrainian refugees, which they have to host. And, you know, there is a lot of discussion going on. So it's all, I guess, you know, a matter of discussion. In Germany, there was a time, there was decades where people would go into the streets and, you know, make real strong activities against Pershing II and other nuclear weapons, but all this stopped. And it's a mystery. We do not know where they are, the pacifists in Germany. They seem to vanish. Yeah, it's like some years you find, you know, when you go into the woods, you find some mushrooms, and some years you don't. Yeah,